The brass desk bell slammed so hard it skittered an inch across the dais. In the Harbor Authority hearing room, every chair creaked into stillness like even the air knew it shouldn't move. Sienna Hart stood at the microphone, 17 shoulders squared, palms open where everyone could see them. A torn strip of red plastic dangled from her wrist, what was left of the visitor badge they'd yanked off her 10 minutes earlier. Conrad Voss leaned forward in his high-backed chair and smiled like he'd already decided the ending. "Dockside kids always think they can walk in here and change the rules," he said. "But this building doesn't run on your feelings. It runs on discipline." Sienna kept her eyes on him. Not defiant, not pleading, just steady. Voss's gaze dropped to the thin chain at her neck, the tiny red Lighthouse USB drive resting against her collarbone. And where he added voice light as a blade is the adult who was supposed to teach you that a ripple moved through the gallery. People who came for shipping permits and zoning waivers suddenly realized they'd wandered into something sharper. Sienna's throat tightened once, then she exhaled slow. "You want to ask him yourself," she said. Voss's eyebrows lifted as if she'd made a joke. "Oh, by all means," he said. "If he answers." Sienna reached into her pocket not for a phone first, but for a small, worn business card. No name, just a seal embossed in the paper and a single extension number. She looked down at it like it was heavier than cardstock had any right to be. Then she looked up. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's ask." And as the hearing room watched, Sienna made the call. Who exactly was supposed to pick up earlier that morning? Sienna had stepped off the city bus at 9:12 a.m., the lake wind cutting through her coat like it had teeth. Duluth looked clean from a distance water sky, downtown glass. You woke up to the low hum of idling engines and the faint, bitter smell that clung to your hair even after you showered. Sienna adjusted the strap of her hard plastic equipment case, the one she'd lined with foam herself. Inside were the sensors she'd built over 6 months, particulate monitors, a tiny weather station, and a calibration device no bigger than a deck of cards. Her project wasn't a science fair volcano. It was a map of what her neighbors had been breathing. And today was supposed to be the day she proved it in a room that couldn't ignore her. At the Harbor Authority Operations Center, the entrance looked like an airport checkpoint dressed up as civic pride. Glass doors, metal detectors, a wall of flat screens showing camera angles like the building was watching itself. Sienna joined a short line behind a man in a suit carrying 2 laptops and a woman with a rolling case full of presentation boards. When the suited man went through, the detector stayed quiet. When the woman went through, the guard barely glanced up. Sienna stepped forward and placed her equipment case on the conveyor belt. The X-ray monitor flickered. A sharp beep chirped once, then twice, then the machine let out a longer warning tone. A security officer with a thick gray mustache stepped closer, head tilting. "What's in the case?" he asked. Sienna's voice stayed calm. "Air quality sensors. I'm presenting to the Coastal Health Commission at 10. The officer didn't answer her. He pulled the case off the belt and flipped the latches like he owned what was inside. "Sensors," Sienna repeated, careful. "It's a student research kit. I have my invitation in hands where I can see 'em." The officer barked loud enough to turn heads across the lobby. Sienna froze. It wasn't the words that scared her. It was how quickly the room decided she was the problem. A second guard approached. Then a third. "Sir," Sienna said, holding her palms out, "my documents are in my backpack. I can show you the agenda." "Don't reach the mustached," officer snapped, and he reached for his radio. "Got an uncooperative subject with a suspicious device." Uncooperative. Sienna felt heat creep up her neck. She'd practiced for weeks how to explain her methods in a way adults respected. None of that mattered when a man with a badge decided the story was already written. As the guards formed a loose half-circle around her, Sienna caught a glimpse of someone across the lobby. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with purpose in a dark suit that didn't look like it came from a store. Conrad Voss. He wasn't security. He wasn't police. He was the Harbor Authority's hearing officer, the guy who presided over compliance hearings, trespass orders, and the kind of administrative decisions that changed people's lives without ever making the news. Sienna had only seen him once from the back of a community meeting where dockside residents begged the city to enforce idling limits. He'd smiled then, too. Voss slowed as he approached the security station, eyes moving from the open case to Sienna's face. "What's going on?" he asked, like he didn't already know. The mustached officer held up one of Sienna's sensor modules. "Found this in her case. Looks like a homemade transmitter." "It's a particulate sensor," Sienna said. "It measures PM2, 5, and PM10. I'm presenting in conference room C at 10. Dr. Priyanand, she invited me." Voss looked her up and down like he was scanning for a lie. "And why aren't you in school?" he asked. "I have an excused absence," Sienna said, "and my guidance counselor filed it. The Coastal Health Commission meets in my building." Voss's tone was mild, almost amused. "Since when it's listed on the agenda," Sienna said. "Monthly session. Public presenters are scheduled. I'm on at 10:15. Voss checked his watch. Then he smiled wider like time itself had just handed him a gift. "We'll see," he said. "For now, security holds the device. Bring her to hearing room 2. Sienna's stomach dropped. "Hearing room 2, she repeated. "I'm not. There's no hearing for me. I'm presenting." Voss didn't look at her. He looked at the guards. "Escort," he said, and that single word did what it always did in buildings like this. It made choice disappear. As they walked, Sienna's equipment case stayed behind on the counter, open like a body on a table. She watched the mustached officer lift out her modules and set them down without care. A tiny green circuit board clinked against metal. 6 months. Dockside mornings. Late nights. Burnt fingertips from soldering. Data points that weren't just numbers, they were her neighbors breathing. And in the corner of her vision, she saw a man in a clean polo shirt carrying a drone case pass through security with barely a glance. Sienna swallowed hard and pulled out her phone as the guards guided her down the hall. She typed a text to her father. "Running late. Security issue. Might miss slot." 3 dots appeared immediately. "What's happening?" Sienna stared at the screen. Her father was in D.C. this week. A conference. Meetings. He'd told her it would be noisy, that his phone might cut out. He already carried enough weight without her adding more. Sienna typed, then erased. Typed again, extra screening. "I'm okay." She hit send and tucked the phone away. Ahead of her, Voss walked with hands clasped behind his back like he was leading a tour. Sienna caught fragments of his low conversation with the mustached officer. "Dockside always has a story," Voss murmured. "They think rules don't apply. Teach her how authority works." Sienna's jaw tightened. This wasn't about a sensor kit. This was about making sure she remembered where the building believed she belonged. Hearing room 2 was smaller than a courtroom, but carried the same vibe: wood paneling, a raised dais, a seal on the wall. A desk bell instead of a gavel. On the table in front of Sienna sat her kit partially disassembled. Voss sat, adjusted his cuffs, and glanced at his phone as if she were an interruption in his schedule. "Explain what it does," he said without looking up. Sienna drew in a breath. "It's a diesel particulate monitoring system. It collects PM2, 5, and black carbon readings across dockside. It also logs wind direction to identify source patterns." Voss tapped his phone screen board. "And why bring it here? The commission meets here," Sienna said. "They requested community data. Dr. Nand invited me." Voss finally looked at her, eyes narrowing. "You're telling me," he said, "a federal adjacent operations center is a stage for your student project?" "It's not a stage," Sienna said carefully. "It's public health. My neighbor's kid uses a nebulizer twice a day. Dockside asthma rates are..." Voss flicked a finger and swept her printed charts to the side without reading them. "You brought unauthorized electronics into a secure facility," he said. That's the end of the conversation. "It's authorized," Sienna said, and her pulse thudded hard enough she felt it in her fingertips. "I have the invite, the agenda, and the letter from North Shore University lab verifying the equipment." Voss stood slowly. He wasn't tall enough to be physically intimidating, but he moved like a man who had never been told no in a room like this. "I've been doing this work a long time," he said. "I know the games people play to get into places they don't belong." Sienna kept her face neutral, but her stomach twisted. People, places, belong. Voss picked up one of her sensor modules between two fingers like it might leave dirt on him. "Where'd you get the parts?" he asked. "Who helped you build it?" "I built it," Sienna said. "The parts were purchased with a state STEM grant. The receipts are—" Voss dropped the module onto the table with a hard clack. "Convenient," he said. "Here's what's going to happen. Security will hold all components for inspection. Your laptop too." "My slides are on that laptop," Sienna said, keeping her voice level. "And my raw data is held." Voss repeated like the word tasted good. "If your story checks out, you'll get it back." Sienna's fingers curled slightly. "May I have a property receipt?" she asked. That finally got a reaction. Voss's smile thinned. "Who's coaching you?" he asked. "No one," Sienna said. "I just want documentation of what was taken." Voss leaned in voice lower now. "You want to play lawyer," he said. "Fine. You'll get a receipt when security is done logging the items. You can wait in the lobby until the commission starts." "And my kit?" Sienna asked. Voss's eyes flicked to the table. "Eventually," he said. "If it's safe." Sienna stared at the pieces of her work, spread out like scraps. Eventually was how systems told you to stop asking. Outside in the hallway, the minutes crawled. Sienna watched people in expensive coats glide past swiping badges that opened doors with soft green lights. She watched staffers laugh and sip coffee. She watched the clock tick toward 10. When she tried to walk toward conference room C, a guard stepped in front of her. "Not without authorization," he said. "I'm scheduled," Sienna said. "I'm on the agenda." The guard didn't care about agendas. He cared about orders. At 9:05, Dr. Priyanand appeared at the end of the hall. She had salt and pepper hair pulled into a loose knot, wire-frame glasses, and the kind of calm that made people assume she'd never been scared in her life. Then, she saw Sienna standing there empty-handed, and the calm cracked. "Sienna, doctor," Nan said, voice tight. "Where's your setup?" Sienna swallowed. "They took it." "Security." Mr. Voss said it's suspicious. Dr. Nan's eyebrows shot up. "That's ridiculous," she said. "Your kit was vetted. I personally reviewed your build list." Dr. Nand turned and marched toward hearing room, too, like the building belonged to her. Sienna followed, heart banging. Inside, Voss was on a call. He held up one finger without looking at them. Sienna noticed how his posture shifted when he saw Dr. Nand straighter, more formal, a mask snapping into place. When the call ended, Dr. Nand didn't waste time. "Mr. Voss," she said, "there's been a misunderstanding. Sienna Hart is our invited presenter. Her equipment is essential." Voss clasped his hands on the desk. "This young lady brought unauthorized electronics into a secure facility," he said. "That requires investigation." "It's not unauthorized," Dr. Nand snapped. "And it's not a device. It's an air monitoring system. If you delay her, you delay the commission's work." Voss's gaze slid to Sienna. "Did you run background checks?" he asked Dr. Nand abruptly. "Do you know where she's from?" Sienna felt her face heat. Dr. Nand hesitated just a beat too long. "She's one of our strongest students," Dr. Nand said. "She's a scholarship finalist. That's what matters." "That doesn't answer my question," Voss said. Then he turned to Sienna, voice sweet again. "Where are you from, miss?" Hart. Sienna held his gaze. "Dockside." Voss nodded slowly, like she'd confirmed his suspicion. "Of course," he murmured. "And you expect me to believe you built this?" "Alone." "I did," Sienna said. "And I'm here to present findings about diesel soot exposure patterns in Dockside and across the hillside neighborhoods." Voss leaned back. "Here's my decision," he said. "You may attend the commission session. Without your equipment, Dr. Nand can take responsibility." Dr. Nand's mouth fell open. "Without the kit, she has no charts," Dr. Nand said. "No data visualization, no live calibration demonstration. You're gutting the presentation." Voss lifted one shoulder. "Then she should have planned better," he said. "Or learned the rules before she walked into my building." Sienna's hands clenched at her sides. "May I at least have my lighthouse drive?" she asked, touching the tiny red USB at her neck. "My data is on it." Voss's eyes narrowed. That, he said, is exactly the sort of storage device we don't allow in secure spaces. It's mine, Sienna said. It's my research. Voss smiled thinly. Run along, he told Dr. Nand. You're on a tight schedule. Then he looked at Sienna and added quiet enough that only she heard. Next time, don't confuse an invitation with permission. Dr. Nand's jaw tightened, but she turned. The clock was winning. Sienna followed her down the hall toward conference room C. With every step, humiliation burned like a fever. But underneath it, something steadier took root. If Voss needed her to be small today, there was a reason. Conference room C was bright and cold, ringed with people in suits and lanyards. A long table, microphones, pitch-perfect smiles. 12 commission members plus observers along the wall. Sienna's slot was real. So was the pressure. Dr. Nand stood at the front. I apologize for the delay, she said. We encountered an unexpected security complication. Sienna stepped forward. Every eye turned. She felt the moment people decided what she was before she spoke. A teenager. Dockside. Trouble. Sienna set her shoulders and spoke anyway. My equipment was confiscated, she said evenly, including my slides and charts. I'm going to present from memory. A whisper ran through the room. Some faces softened with pity. Others sharpened with judgment, like they were already writing notes about how unprepared she was. Sienna took a breath and looked at the commission chair, a woman with kind eyes and a hard mouth. I'm sorry, Sienna said, but I'm not here to perform. I'm here because people in Dockside are breathing something the rest of the city gets protected from. Silence. Then, somewhere in the back, a pen clicked. Sienna began. She described her methodology: 6 months of data collection, 3 daily time windows, cross-checked calibration, wind direction controls. She explained how black carbon spikes didn't happen randomly. They happened when ships idled longer than policy allowed. They happened during specific loading schedules. They happened on the same mornings. Dockside kids waited for buses under a haze that made the sunrise look dirty. With no slides, Sienna borrowed a legal pad from Dr. Nand and sketched a simple map of the shoreline. She drew arrows for wind. She drew dots for sensor nodes. She marked the hot spot near the east gate where trucks lined up in the early hours. This is the pattern, she said, tapping the paper. The readings in Dockside average over double the hillside neighborhoods. On certain days, it triples. A commissioner leaned forward. Do you have health correlations? He asked. Sienna nodded. Dockside Clinic shared anonymized asthma exacerbation visit counts. The spikes align. It's not proof of causation on its own, I'm not claiming that, but it's enough to justify enforcement and further study. The commission chair's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. And what do you want from us, Miss Hart? She asked. Sienna's pulse steadied. I want the port's idling rules enforced the same way in Dockside as they would be if this haze drifted into the tourist waterfront, she said. And I want transparent reporting. Public data, not private spreadsheets that disappear. A hush settled over the room. Then Dr. Nand's face softened pride plain as day. When Sienna finished, the room didn't erupt in applause like a movie. It did something more meaningful. It shifted. Commission members asked questions. Real questions. Specific questions. The kind that meant they were imagining action. The chair finally nodded. Remarkable work, she said, especially under these circumstances. Sienna's chest loosened just a fraction. Then the chair asked the question Sienna had been dreading. Where is your equipment now? Sienna chose her words carefully. In the custody of Harbor Authority Security, she said, by order of Hearing Officer Voss. The chair's mouth tightened. That's unusual, she said. We'll address it. Then she glanced at Dr. Nand. And Miss Hart, she added, we're holding a state coastal health symposium next month in Street Paul. I want you there. With your equipment. Fully supported. Sienna blinked. A bigger room, a bigger audience, a bigger consequence if her data vanished. I'd be honored, Sienna managed. The meeting adjourned with murmurs. As people filed out, Sienna slipped into the restroom and locked herself in a stall. Her hands shook as the adrenaline drained. She pressed her forehead to the cool metal divider and exhaled. Then, she pulled out her phone and called her dad. It went to voicemail. Sienna swallowed. "Hey," she said quietly. "It's me. Something happened. Harbor Authority took my kit. Voss ordered it. I got through the presentation anyway, but they won't give it back. I don't know what to do next. Call when you can." She ended the call and stared at the screen until it went dark. "Outside, Doctor." Nand waited. "You did incredible, Doctor," Nand said as Sienna emerged. "I've never seen someone hold a room like that with nothing but a pen." Sienna's smile was small. "Thank you," she said. "Do you think I can get my kit back today, Doctor?" Nand's expression tightened. "Let's try," she said. Back at Hearing Room 2, Voss was in session processing minor compliance matters like they were chores. Sienna watched from the back as a marina owner with a polished watch got gentle questions and patient explanations. Then a dockside resident, arguing a noise citation, got cut off mid-sentence twice. Sienna didn't need charts to see patterns. After nearly an hour, the room cleared. Voss finally looked up. "Still here," he said, like she was a stray cat. "Yes, sir," Sienna said. "I completed my presentation. I'd like my property returned." Voss clasped his hands again. "That won't be possible today," he said. "Security inspection isn't complete." "Doctor," Nand stepped forward. "Mr. Voss, her kit contains months of data," she said. "It's irreplaceable." Voss's smile didn't move. "Then, she should have considered that before bringing questionable hardware into a secure facility," he said. Sienna felt her jaw tighten. "When can I expect it back?" she asked. Voss leaned forward. "When we're satisfied," he said. "Could be days, could be weeks." Weeks. The symposium was next month. Her scholarship committee met in 2 weeks. Her entire future was balanced on a foam-lined case now sitting behind someone else's locked door. Sienna nodded once. "Thank you for your time," she said politely. Then she turned and walked out with composure so perfect it almost fooled her. Outside the building, the wind off the lake hit her face hard. Sienna made another call, this time to Marisol King, the legal aid attorney Dr. Nand had insisted she meet months ago just in case. Marisol answered on the second ring. "Tell me you're not calling from inside that building," Marisol said. "I'm outside," Sienna said. "They took my kit. Voss ordered it. He won't give it back." A pause. Then Marisol's voice sharpened. "Start from the beginning," she said. "And don't leave out a single name. If this story is hitting you, tap like, because kids shouldn't need lawyers to keep their homework from being destroyed." The next morning, Sienna walked into school like her backpack weighed 50 pounds. Her physics teacher, Mr. Ellison, pulled her aside after first period. "Dr. Nand called me," he said quietly. "What happened?" Sienna told him the facts. No dramatics. No tears. Just the timeline. By the end, Mr. Ellison's face had gone tight in that way adults got when they realized they'd been naive about fairness. "They can't hold property indefinitely without documentation," he said. "Especially student research." Sienna nodded. "I asked for a receipt," she said. "He acted like that was rude." Mr. Ellison's expression hardened. "Your scholarship portfolio is due next Friday," he reminded her. Sienna's stomach sank. "I know," she said. "If I don't have my raw data and the live demo, you could rebuild," Mr. Ellison offered. Sienna forced a breath. "Rebuilding hardware is possible," she said. "Rebuilding 6 months of data isn't." At lunch, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. One line. "Recycle bin pickup tomorrow, 730A. M. Not supposed to tell you. I'm sorry." Sienna stared at the screen until the cafeteria noise faded into a dull roar. Recycle bin. That was how they planned to describe destroying her work. She tried calling her dad again. Voicemail. Sienna's hands went cold. After school, she went straight back to the Harbor Authority. This time, a different guard blocked her at the entrance. "Miss Hart," he said. "You're not authorized." I need to speak to Mr. Voss, Sienna said. My property is scheduled for disposal. The guard's face stayed blank. Come back with legal counsel, he said. Sienna stepped back, scanning the lobby. Then she saw the mustached officer from yesterday, leaning near the coffee kiosk, laughing with another guard. Sienna walked over. Officer, she said, please. My kit is scheduled for disposal tomorrow. It contains research data. Can I at least retrieve the beacon drive, its red lighthouse shape? The officer's smile faded. Orders are orders, he said. It's my property, Sienna insisted. It's not contraband. It's a USB drive. The officer's eyes narrowed. You kids always think you're special, he said. Maybe you'll learn something when your little toy gets recycled. Sienna felt anger flare so bright it almost made her dizzy. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't curse. She did something harder. She held his gaze and said, You're about to help destroy proof that Dockside is being poisoned. Is that what you want on your conscience? The officer looked away first. Sienna walked out into the wind with her breath coming too fast. She called Marisol. They're destroying it tomorrow, Sienna said. I got a warning. Marisol didn't gasp. She didn't sound surprised at all. Okay, she said. We go paper first. Tonight. You document everything times names what was said. Then we file an emergency property claim and a preservation request. Preservation, Lord, Sienna echoed. It's how we make destruction risky, Marisol said. If they destroy it after they've been put on notice, it's not recycling. It's evidence spoliation. Sienna swallowed. Will it work? She asked. Marisol exhaled. It should, she said, unless the building is rotten. That night, Sienna sat at her kitchen table with a spiral notebook open. Her mom watched from the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. Honey, her mom said gently, sometimes you can't fight every powerful person who decides to be cruel. Sienna didn't look up. This isn't just about me, she said. They didn't take my kit because they were scared of wires. They took it because of what the data shows. Her mom's eyes narrowed. What does it show? She asked. Sienna tapped her pen against the paper, thinking. It shows the worst soot spikes happen right after certain ships are granted extended idling windows, Sienna said. And those ships, they're tied to the redevelopment contracts. Her mom's face tightened. The lakefront project, she whispered. Sienna nodded. Dockside had been promised revitalization for years. What it got was code enforcement, nuisance citations, fines for peeling paint, and developers waiting with cash offers the moment a family couldn't keep up. Sienna looked at her mom. If Dockside looks blighted, she said quietly, it gets cheaper. Her mom's hands went to her mouth. You think they're doing this on purpose, she said. I think someone wants the data gone, Sienna replied. And Voss is the person standing in front of the shredder. Marisol emailed documents by midnight. Sienna printed them at a friend's house because their home printer was out of ink. At 8 a.m. Sienna stood on the Harbor Authority steps in the gray-blue dawn wind, snapping her coat. Marisol arrived with coffee and a folder thick enough to feel like armor. You ready? Marisol asked. Sienna nodded, though her stomach felt like a fist. When the doors opened, they walked in together. Badges, cameras. The same lobby where Sienna had been treated like a threat. This time, Marisol spoke first. We're here to file an emergency property claim, she said to the guard, and a preservation notice. Your staff has scheduled destruction of my client's research equipment at 7:30. The guard blinked, startled by certainty. Let me call upstairs, he said. Minutes later, Conrad Voss appeared in the lobby like he'd been summoned by irritation. His eyes flicked to Marisol, then to Sienna, then to the folder. Persistent, he said, like persistence was a personality defect. Marisol didn't flinch. Mr. Voss, she said, my client's property is being improperly retained and scheduled for destruction. We're requesting immediate return, or at minimum, secured preservation, until a neutral review is completed. Voss smiled. You can file whatever you like, he said, but you don't get to disrupt building security protocols because a teenager is attached to her hobby. It's not a hobby, Sienna said, voice steady. Voss's gaze snapped to her sharp. Marisol placed the preservation notice on the counter. "Now, you're on record," Marisol said. "If that kit is destroyed after this moment, it's not a protocol issue. It's a legal issue." Voss's smile tightened. He leaned toward Sienna, lowering his voice. "You think papers scare me," he murmured. "You don't have power here." Sienna felt the words hit, then slide off because she'd already decided something. She lifted the chain at her neck so the tiny lighthouse drive caught the lobby light. "I do have something," she said quietly. "I have beacon. And copies." Voss's eyes flickered just for a second. There it was. Fear, small, fast, undeniable. Then it vanished, replaced by anger. Voss straightened and raised his voice. "Miss Hart is creating a disturbance," he said to the guard. "She is trespassed from this facility effective immediately." Sienna's heart dropped. Marisol's eyes narrowed. "You can't trespass her for filing a claim," Marisol snapped. Voss lifted a hand as if blessing the air. "Watch me," he said. Two guards approached. Marisol stepped between them and Sienna. "Back up," Marisol said. "She's standing on public access ground, exercising her rights. You want to trespass someone, put it in writing and state the cause." Voss's jaw tightened. He leaned in low again. "Dockside always thinks it's entitled to my time," he said. "You want a lesson, here it is." He nodded once toward the mustached officer. "Retrieve the items," Voss said. "For immediate disposal. Now." Sienna's breath caught. Marisol grabbed Sienna's arm gently. "Don't engage," Marisol whispered. "We pivot. We find an on-call judge. We file an emergency injunction." Sienna's eyes tracked the elevator doors. She pictured her foam-lined case behind a locked cage. She pictured a recycle bin swallowing 6 months of proof. And in that moment, she made a choice that tasted like metal. "Wait," she said. Marisol looked at her, startled. Sienna reached into her pocket and pulled out that worn business card again. The one with only a seal and an extension. Marisol's gaze flicked to it. "What is that?" Marisol asked, under her breath. Sienna swallowed. "A number I don't use," she said quietly, "because I didn't want this to become about him." Marisol's eyes sharpened. "Sienna," she said. "Who was your father?" Sienna's voice came out thin. "He told me to keep it quiet," she said. "For safety. For normalcy." Marisol held her gaze. "Who," she repeated, "is your father?" Sienna looked toward Voss, who was watching them like a man enjoying a slow crush. Then she looked back at Marisol. "He works federal integrity," she said. "New appointment last year." Marisol exhaled once controlled. "Okay," she said. "We don't swing it like a weapon. We use it like a doorstop, just enough to keep them from destroying evidence." Sienna nodded. She lifted her phone and dialed the extension. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, calm, clipped, familiar. "This is Hart," the voice said. Sienna's throat tightened. "Dad," she said. "They're destroying my kit right now." A pause, short but heavy. "Put me on speaker," her father said. Sienna did. Marisol watched, expression unreadable. Sienna's father's voice filled the lobby. "This is Elias Hart," he said. "Who am I speaking to?" Marisol stepped forward. "Marisol King, legal aid," she said. "Harbor Authority is improperly disposing of my client's research property under order of Hearing Officer Conrad Voss." "I understand," Elias Hart said. "Miss King, walk back inside. Ask security to call this number if they resist. Do not raise your voice. Do not argue. Just repeat the extension." He recited the number again, slower. Sienna's hands shook as she ended the call. They approached the entrance checkpoint again. The guard stiffened. "She's trespassed," he said quickly. Marisol held up her phone. "Call this number," she said. "Now." The guard hesitated. Then, reluctantly, he dialed. Sienna watched the guard's face change in real time. His posture straightened. His eyes widened slightly. "Yes, sir," the guard said. "Right away, sir." He hung up and swallowed. "You can proceed," he said, suddenly respectful. Sienna's heartbeat thundered. Marisol leaned close. "Who is your father?" she whispered again. Sienna's voice came out small. I didn't even know the full title until last month, she admitted. He didn't want it in my life. They moved through the hallway faster this time, doors opening, badges flashing, people stepping aside. They reached Voss's office suite. A clerk tried to block them, but Marisol simply repeated the extension. The clerk disappeared into the back. Moments later, the clerk returned pale. "He'll see you," she said. Inside, Voss stood behind his desk. Sienna's foam-lined case sat open on a side table, pieces scattered like yesterday never ended. A hammer lay beside it. Sienna's stomach turned. Voss's eyes flicked to Marisol's phone. "Oh," he said lightly. "You found a big friend." Marisol stepped forward. "Return the property," she said. "Now, in the condition it was taken." Voss scoffed. "This is harassment," he said. "I made a security determination." Marisol lifted her phone. "Then call the number yourself," she said. "Explain your determination." Voss's smile faltered. Sienna spoke quiet but clear. "If you're sure you're right," she said, "you won't mind making the call." For the first time, Voss looked unsure. Not defeated. Just aware that the room's gravity had shifted. He took the phone like it might stain him and dialed. "This is Conrad Voss," he said. "Who am I speaking with?" His expression changed mid-sentence. Annoyance to caution, caution to shock. Then the color drained from his face. "Yes," Voss stammered. "I understand. But the device." He stopped talking. Listened. Swallowed. "Yes," he said again, smaller. "Yes, sir." He handed the phone back to Marisol with a hand that shook just enough for Sienna to notice. Voss cleared his throat. "Your property will be returned immediately," he said, voice stiff. "In full," Sienna said, pointing to the beacon drive at her neck, "and with the raw data intact." Voss's eyes avoided hers. Marisol moved to the side table and began gathering the components, carefully checking for damage. Sienna's hands hovered over the foam case like she was afraid to touch it and find it gone. She noticed a scratch on one sensor, casing fresh. Her throat tightened. But it was here. It wasn't in a recycle bin. Marisol snapped the latches shut. As they turned to leave, Sienna's phone rang. "Dad." Sienna answered on speaker without thinking. "Is it resolved?" Elias Hart asked. "Yes," Sienna said, breath shaking. "We have it." "Good," Elias Hart said. "Now put Mr. Voss on the line." Marisol's eyes widened slightly. Sienna hesitated, then handed the phone toward Voss. Voss stepped forward like a man approaching a ledge. He took the phone. "This is Voss," he said. Elias Hart's voice came through steady. "Mr. Voss," he said, "I will be in Duluth tomorrow at 9:00 a. You will meet with the independent oversight investigator and provide a full account of your actions regarding my daughter and the Harbor Authority's retention practices." Voss's mouth parted. "Yes," he managed. "Yes, sir." He handed the phone back quickly as if it burned. He didn't look at Sienna as she walked out. In the hallway, Marisol exhaled low. "Okay," Marisol said. "That's not a federal integrity job. That's serious." Sienna swallowed. "He leads the Office of Public Accountability," she said quietly. "New appointment." "He told me not to say it out loud. He wanted me to be normal." Marisol looked at her. "And you?" Marisol asked. "What did you want?" Sienna stared at the closed case in her hands. "I wanted my neighborhood to breathe," she said. "I wanted my work to matter, even if no one knew my last name." Marisol nodded once. "Then we make sure the story stays on the data," she said, "not the title." That night, the rumor hit social media anyway. Not the title, just a whisper. Dockside girl calls in a federal dad to bully Harbor Authority. Sienna saw it in a comment thread under a local news post about port expansion. Her stomach dropped. Voss wasn't the only one who knew how to weaponize narrative. At school the next day, Sienna's guidance counselor called her in. "I got an email," the counselor said carefully, "from someone at the Harbor Authority. They're claiming you attempted to bring a prohibited device into a secure facility. That could complicate your scholarship review." Sienna felt cold. There it was. Second wave. Not just taking her kit, taking her future. Sienna left the office and found Jonah Pike by the science wing doors. Jonah was tall and awkward, in the way of kids who'd grown too fast, with hands that always looked like they'd been fixing something. His dad worked the docks. Jonah knew the port schedules like other kids knew sports stats. He'd helped Sienna once quietly dropping off weatherproof casing scraps he found at home. When he saw her face, his expression tightened. "They're coming at you," he said. Sienna nodded. Jonah glanced around, then leaned in. "I can help," he said, "but you have to trust me." Sienna hesitated. Trust was expensive. "What do you know?" she asked. Jonah swallowed. "I saw something," he said. "Ship idling logs. The official ones don't match the actual gate scans. Someone edits them." Sienna's breath caught. "Who?" she asked. Jonah's eyes flicked toward the window toward the direction of the lake. "I don't know," he said, "but I know where the real scans live, and I know the supervisor who hates Voss." Sienna stared at him. This wasn't just about soot anymore. This was about falsifying records. Public records. The kind of thing that didn't stay administrative for long. Jonah's voice softened. "I'm not saying this to be dramatic," he said, "but if you're right, Dockside didn't just get ignored. Dockside got targeted." Sienna's throat tightened. "Why are you telling me?" she asked. Jonah looked down, then back up. "Because you're the first person who ever tried to prove what we all felt," he said, "and because I don't want you standing alone in front of them." Sienna felt something warm and frightening bloom in her chest. Not romance like fireworks. Something quieter. A hand on your back when the door is heavy. "Okay," she said, "show me." That afternoon, Sienna met Jonah at the Lake Superior Community Boathouse, where dockside meetings smelled like coffee and wet wood. Marisol arrived with a laptop doctor, Nand with a lab badge, and 3 community elders with faces that said they'd been dismissed their whole lives. Sienna placed Beacon, the tiny lighthouse drive, on the table like it was a vow. She laid out her data. Jonah laid out what he'd found. Gate scan, timestamps, unedited, idling durations, discrepancies that weren't clerical. Dr. Nan's face tightened as she compared the logs. "This is falsification, Doctor," Nan said. Marisol nodded slowly. "And falsification makes destruction of Sienna's kit look a lot less like security," she said, "and a lot more like a cover-up." One of the elders, Mr. Alvarez, leaned back. "So what now?" he asked. Sienna looked at the table at Beacon, at the papers, at Jonah's shaky hands. Her stomach twisted. Because she knew what now meant. Now meant a fight that didn't stay contained. Now meant headlines. Now meant dockside families being pressured, threatened, offered hush money and polite envelopes. Now meant her father's job colliding with her life in a way he'd tried to prevent. Sienna inhaled. "Now," she said, "we verify everything twice." Dr. Nand nodded. "My lab can validate Sienna's methodology and the log discrepancies." Marisol added, "And I can file a formal complaint with the independent oversight investigator outside Voss's chain." Mr. Alvarez's eyes settled on Sienna. "And you," he said. "What will you do?" Sienna swallowed. "I'm going to present in Street Paul," she said, "with my kit, with verified data, and with Dockside standing behind it." Jonah's gaze met hers. "And if they come for you again?" he asked softly. Sienna touched Beacon. "Then they're not just coming for me," she said. "They're coming for everyone who breathes." The next morning, at 9:00, a black SUV pulled up outside the Harbor Authority. Sienna watched from across the street with Marisol and Dr. Nand. Her father stepped out, Elias Hart, calm, suit-tired eyes, the kind of presence that didn't need volume. But he didn't walk in like a hero. He walked in like a man who knew every camera angle and every consequence. He met Sienna's gaze once, just once. A silent question. "Are you okay?" Sienna nodded. He nodded back. Then he entered the building with an independent oversight investigator beside him. Dana Rourke, a woman with a blunt haircut and a folder thick as a brick. This mattered. Not because of who Elias was. Because Dana wasn't him. Dana wasn't family. Dana was process with teeth. Inside, Voss's face appeared through the glass doors for a moment, tight, pale, smiling too hard. He was a man who'd built a career on control, and control was slipping. For the next hour, Sienna sat in the boathouse with dockside elders while Marisol took calls. "Doctor," Nand paced, muttering to herself about protocol and ethics. Jonah sat beside Sienna, knee bouncing. "You scared?" he asked. Sienna stared at her hands. "Yeah," she admitted, "but not the way I thought I'd be." Jonah tilted his head. "What way?" he asked. Sienna exhaled. "I'm scared they'll make this about my dad," she said, "and people will stop listening to Dockside. Like the only reason we mattered is because I had a number in my pocket." Jonah's gaze softened. "That number didn't build your kit," he said. "You did." Sienna swallowed hard. "And I'm scared," she added, "that once this gets big, someone will offer Dockside a deal that sounds like help but is really just quiet." Jonah nodded slowly. "Then don't let them," he said. "Loud is the point." At 1117, Marisol's phone rang. She answered, listened, then looked up at Sienna. "They're placing Voss on immediate administrative leave," Marisol said. "Pending investigation." Sienna's breath caught. Dr. Nand stopped pacing, and Marisol added, "They're freezing all disposal orders and retention practices. Dana Rourke is issuing a preservation directive across the building." A cheer rose from the boathouse, quiet, disbelieving, fierce. Sienna felt her chest loosen, not joy exactly, relief with teeth. But then, Marisol's expression shifted. "And Sienna," she added, "Voss's attorney is already calling this political. They're going to say you weaponized your father." Sienna's stomach tightened. Here it was. The narrative war. Sienna nodded once. "Then we don't argue titles," she said. "We argue facts. If you're still with Sienna, subscribe, because the second wave is always the loudest lie." 1 week later, the waterfront public forum drew a crowd so big the boathouse couldn't hold it. So they held it outside on the pier under a sky the color of steel. News cameras lined the edge of the crowd. Dockside families stood shoulder to shoulder with university scientists, nurses, and even a few port workers who'd never spoken publicly before. Sienna stood near the front, beacon tucked under her shirt like a heartbeat. Elias Hart stood a few rows back, not at the podium. Not the face, just present. Dana Rourke took the microphone, her voice carried without drama. "This forum is not a trial," Dana said. "It's an accounting." Conrad Voss sat at a side table with his attorney, looking smaller without the dais. Dana didn't look at him first. She looked at the crowd. "In the last 3 months," she said, "the Harbor Authority issued a disproportionate number of nuisance compliance actions in Dockside. Many resulted in fines, liens, and forced remediation timelines inconsistent with similar cases in hillside neighborhoods." A murmur moved through the crowd. Dana held up a chartboard, simple, clear, undeniable. Then she lifted a second, and during that same period she continued, "Diesel idling violations were recorded at a high rate in dockside corridors, but enforcement actions were delayed, reduced, or edited out of official logs." Sienna's breath caught. Jonah's information. Verified. Dana turned slightly. "Miss Hart's monitoring data was not the origin of this misconduct," Dana said, "but it became the catalyst that made it visible." She paused, letting the crowd absorb it. "Evidence shows Mr. Voss used security protocols to retain and attempt to destroy community-collected data that threatened to expose falsified operational records," Dana said. "That is an abuse of authority." Voss's attorney stood. "This is speculation," he snapped. Dana didn't flinch. "It's documented," she said, "including written disposal, scheduling, retention orders, and communications between Mr. Voss's office and a redevelopment firm tied to upcoming dockside property acquisition." The crowd erupted, angry, shocked, vindicated. Sienna felt Jonah's hand hover near hers. Not touching. Just there. Dana lifted a hand for calm. "Now," Dana said, "the question isn't whether Dockside deserved protection." She looked directly at the crowd. "Dockside deserved it the whole time." Sienna's eyes stung. Dana turned to Sienna then, not as a child, not as a prop. "As a citizen," Dana said. Miss Hart, would you speak? Sienna stepped forward, heart pounding. She looked at the microphones, the cameras, the faces, some hopeful, some furious, some exhausted. She took one breath. I didn't build my kit to catch a man, she said. I built it because I wanted my little cousins to stop coughing when the wind comes off the lake. She touched Beacon lightly unseen beneath her shirt. And when my equipment was taken, she continued, I wanted to call it unfair and go home. She swallowed. But then I realized if they could erase my data, they could erase Dockside again. Like always, Sienna's voice steadied. So here's what I'm doing, she said. I'm publishing the methodology. I'm training other students. I'm putting monitors in more hands. Not so one kid becomes the story, so the air becomes the story. A hush settled, and Sienna added, voice quieter. I'm also saying something hard. I kept it quiet because I wanted my work to stand on its own. But when they moved to destroy it, when procedure became a shredder, I used the only lever I had. She looked back to the crowd. I'm not proud of needing that lever, she said. I'm proud I didn't let them destroy the proof. Dana nodded once approval without praise. That's accountability, Dana said. And that's how systems change. Voss's face tightened. Dana turned to him. Mr. Voss, she said, you will surrender your credentials today. You will be barred from holding administrative authority pending the outcome of the formal misconduct process, and the retention policy you hid behind will be rewritten with community oversight. Voss opened his mouth, then closed it, because for once his voice didn't control the room. Later that night, Sienna walked along the Ore Pier overlook with Jonah. The lake stretched out dark and endless. Jonah shoved his hands in his pockets. So, he said, trying to sound casual and failing, you're kind of famous now. Sienna let out a short breath that almost became a laugh. I don't want famous, she said. I want enforceable. Jonah nodded. That's the most you thing I've ever heard, he said. They walked in silence for a moment. Then Jonah said, I was scared to give you those logs. Sienna looked at him. Why? She asked. Jonah's gaze stayed on the horizon. Because the port is my dad's paycheck, he said. And because people like Voss don't just lose, they look for someone else to blame. Sienna's chest tightened. You didn't have to help, she said. Jonah shrugged, then finally met her eyes. Yeah, he said. I did. Sienna's breath caught, not because it was romantic, because it was true. 3 months later in Street Paul, Sienna stood on a stage at the Coastal Health Symposium with her kit rebuilt, upgraded, and fully verified by North Shore University. This time her slides were on 3 backup drives. This time her raw data was mirrored in the cloud. This time Beacon was just one piece of redundancy, still the symbol but no longer the single point of failure. Dr. Nan sat in the front row. Marisol sat beside her, arms crossed like a guard dog in a blazer. Jonah watched from the side aisle, having taken a day off from dock work to be there. Sienna presented like she'd been born for it, not because she loved attention, because she loved precision. She spoke about particulate matter, black carbon wind vectors, and enforcement patterns. She spoke about public dashboards and community monitoring networks, and then she spoke about something that made the room quieter than charts ever could. Data doesn't fix a system by itself, Sienna said. But it makes denial harder, and when denial gets harder, accountability gets possible. Afterward, a university offered her a full scholarship environmental engineering with a policy track. A state health official asked if she'd consult on a statewide monitoring rollout. Sienna smiled and said yes, then went outside and breathed cold air like it was new. That night, she called her father. Elias answered immediately. Hey, he said. Sienna leaned against the hotel wall. I did it, she said softly. I know, Elias said. I watched the live stream. Sienna hesitated. Are you mad I used your number? She asked. A pause. Then her father exhaled. I'm not mad, he said. I'm sad that you needed it. Sienna swallowed. I didn't want it to be about you, she said. I know, Elias said, and that's why I'm proud of you. Sienna's eyes stung. But Elias added gently, you need to understand something. Power always tries to recruit you. It offers you shortcuts. It offers you protection if you stop pushing. Sienna nodded, even though he couldn't see it. I won't stop, she said. I know, Elias replied. So choose your allies carefully, and keep your work open. That's how you outlive retaliation. 1 year later, Dockside looked different. Not perfect, not magically healed, but different in ways you could feel in your lungs. New trees lined the street by the clinic. Idling enforcement cameras, real ones, not paper promises, monitored the east gate. Air monitors, modeled after Sienna's design, stood at intersections, their readings visible to anyone with a phone. And inside the Lake Superior Community Boathouse, a wall-sized screen displayed live particulate levels like a weather report the city could no longer hide. Sienna stepped into the boathouse and paused. A group of middle school kids hovered around a table soldering small sensor boards under Jonah's watchful eye. Jonah looked up and grinned. Don't judge the solder joints, he said. They're learning. Sienna smiled. I remember my first week, she said. Everything looked like a burnt noodle. Jonah laughed. Marisol walked in behind Sienna holding a folder. Guess who resigned, Marisol said. Sienna's stomach tightened. Voss Marisol nodded. Resigned rather than face the final misconduct ruling. But Dana's report still goes public. He doesn't get to erase the record. Sienna exhaled. And the redevelopment firm, she asked. Marisol's smile was sharp. Under investigation, she said. And the city's creating a dockside health remediation fund funded by settlement money, real money. Sienna stared at the kids soldering. She thought about the first morning she'd walked into that glass building with a foam-lined case and hope. She thought about the hammer on the table. She thought about Beacon, the tiny lighthouse drive that had become more than storage. A reminder. Proof could be fragile, but it could also be shared. Sienna stepped forward and placed Beacon on the table, not like a secret, but like a symbol. One of the kids looked up. Are you the lighthouse girl? The kid asked, eyes wide. Sienna laughed softly. I'm just Sienna, she said. And you're next. Outside, the wind off the lake still carried the smell of diesel some mornings. Change didn't arrive like a movie ending. It arrived like repetition. Measurement. Pressure. Community. Sienna walked out onto the pier as the sun broke through clouds, lighting the water in a way that made it look clean even when it wasn't. Jonah joined her. You okay? He asked. Sienna nodded. Yeah, she said, just thinking. About what? Jonah asked. Sienna touched the chain at her neck. Beacon rested against her collarbone, warm from her skin. About how they told me my place, she said, and how wrong they were. Jonah's shoulder bumped hers lightly. Your place, he said, is wherever you decide to stand. Sienna looked out at the lake, and for the first time in a long time, the air felt like something the city couldn't steal. Share this if someone needs a reminder that proof and courage can come from anywhere.